Hey everybody, Teching 101 here, and welcome back to a special post-Core 1 Bleach installment of BANKAST. Have a special guest here today, Clyde.
What's up, man? Thank you very much for having me on Tekken 101. It's actually pretty cool to collab with you because I guess a lot of people wouldn't know this. I don't talk about it too often, but I did watch a lot of channels like yourself, King of Lightning, James, and the Elite Ace and all those guys back in the day. So it's kind of like weird but cool at the same time to be collabing with you right now because it has come full circle, you know, starting off the YouTube channel and now here we are.
It just makes me feel old, honestly, when I think back to it was like 2011 when I started talking about Bleach. Here we are 12 years later almost, and I'm like, oh man. But hey, I inspired a lot of other YouTubers. Here we are today. Yeah. So, and I checked out your stuff, really awesome channel. I saw the Baragon video you did. That one was sweet. Like, good job, man.
No, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, I guess your Yamamoto walking towards Yuha with his like neck snapping as he's like really
just like,
oh man, I'm old as hell.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm gonna turn 30 this year, man. So yeah.
Man, you're getting ancient actually.
Oh
so
God, yeah. Don't remind me. The knees are starting to go.
Yeah, I always did not to shine your pole too much for the start of the video, but I always did appreciate how much effort you and the Elite Ace specifically would always put into doing the whole dress up, having the swords out, sitting there in front of the camera and really breaking down a chapter like to the point where it was like, oh, I have an extra 30 minutes of content every week that I can watch on a chapter that I just read. So it was always a cool thing to reflect on after each chapter came out.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I mean, like, honestly, that was a lot of fun back in those days. People ask me to, like, why don't I keep doing that with One Piece? And the thing is, like, One Piece chapters are so packed with information that, like, if I did the skits and everything, and I'm doing a lot more videos now anyway, but if I did that with One Piece, like, the chapter reviews would be, like, 3 hours long, like, every week, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it was certainly a lot of fun for those days, and so, thank you for mentioning all that. And I want to have Ace on. I think he's gonna, I'm gonna request that he's on for the first episode of Core 2, which I think is coming out in July 15th, if I'm not mistaken with that.
Yeah, somewhere around there. It seems like that's the aim for them is to release it in July.
Yeah, so I want to have him on in Core 2, definitely. So, yeah, but I think the first season of this went pretty well. The first part of the season of Bleach and the first series of BANKAST that I'm doing. So, this is a loaded question right out of the gate, but what was your favorite episode of the first 13?
Easily episode 6 with Yamamoto. Yeah.
Mine too.
Without a doubt. Yeah. It definitely reminded me a lot of back in the day when the Madara reveal first happened, and I'm talking about like when he actually fought everybody in the war arc of Naruto Shippuden. Like the amount of effort that went into that episode was very reminiscent of, back and forth between the Yamamoto episode and the Madara one. Like those two felt they very much like symbolize like, all right, this is the peak work at the moment for these two series. Like the animators have taken this very seriously. What I heard going into this season too, a lot of the guys that were working on that episode were given a lot more freedom to really flesh it out so they could make that episode essentially perfect. And I think it was for the most part. If I could have like one singular complaint about it, it was just my own personal taste about where the placement of music was in the episode. But apart from that, like almost every single frame of that episode is screenshot worthy. Like it was amazing. I really felt like they done, Yamamoto's Bankai justice, especially after we waited 10 years to see it, from the manga's adaptation to the anime, from the anime getting, sort of like, I don't want to say cancelled because we know in retrospect it was just put on hiatus, but, it is what it is. It's really cool that fight finally got justice and people around the world got to see it animated who probably would have never actually seen it because they wouldn't read the manga.
I mean, in every single pun possible, it was a straight fire episode. I mean,
yeah.
It is, and it's my favorite too, easily. This part of the story, it's been in the manga for 10 plus years at this point, and everyone's like, okay, the fight with Yamamoto is going to be like one of the highest points of this entire season at the beginning of it. And I was thinking like, okay, how are they going to animate this? How's the music going to go? And yes, like to your credit, like what you said, I pictured different kind of music used during the fight, but it was still really epic, the music that they chose. There's this, I saw one person do a cover of this. A lot of people have been doing remixes of the soundtrack, and there's one that is when Yamamoto just arrives and stares down Yuha, and it's just like this dun 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 dun, and it's like this, like, oh boy, like things are like not getting started yet, but they're about to.
Yeah, there was a OST that was playing. It's just before he goes Bankai, like specifically, and like he sort of stands there and he's got his sword and so on, and the camera angles are sort of flowing around. I felt like the song was too somber and too soft for the scene because when you look at, say, Yamamoto versus Wonder Wise as an example, like I rewatched it with a friend who hadn't seen Bleach, and he was just like, "Holy crap, this old man is so cool!" Like I personally feel like Noriyuki Abe's placement of music fits Bleach a lot better, and that was one of my most consistent complaints about the season itself. Was I just felt like there was too much overuse of the remix songs. I felt like some of the remix songs themselves didn't really fit a lot of the scenes, especially the Blade is Me part where Ichigo goes over to White and goes to, grab him by the hand, and they have that whole. I personally, like, I don't want to sit here and be super negative, but I really was not a fan of the song that they chose for that scene. That really bothered me when I watched it on stream with the audience together, because we were doing that every week. I was watching it on Twitch with my audience, and it was really cool to look forward to every time an episode would come out. But those little things like that, I was unhappy with. But as for episode 6, though, entirely, like, that episode was crazy. Like, I showed that to people who don't even watch Bleach, and they were like, "Bro, this looks like movie animation." Like, it was just so consistent the whole time.
I mean, it was really good animation all throughout. I really can't have any complaints on that. It's a different musical flavor than in the, let's just say, the first generation Bleach anime, certainly. There's a few OSTs that, I don't know if they use, like, remixes of, like, I'm a big fan of, like, Invasion and Treachery, and it's like, maybe those would, like, I would have pictured those, or at least I would have imagined those being played during the Yamamoto versus Yuha fight, and it was, like, a different kind of score. And they worked really, really well. Especially, my favorite, probably, new score was the one that played during the original Gotei scene where they're just massacring the Leaked Reich. That is insane. I have that on my playlist of how good that one is.
So speaking of that, this OST here, by the way, is one that they low-key should have done something with for the Yamamoto part, I feel like, maybe. Okay. But I do agree with you that some invasion-type treachery thing would have been really hype for that part of the fight. Just to really emphasize, like, how hardcore Yamamoto is, but I actually do I like the song that plays very specifically when Ichigo fights Yuha and they clash, and then that really intense one happens as they're like machine gun flash step, hidden kyakuing around the fucking area. Like,
oh god,
so
yeah.
insane.
It's like you can feel like every clash they make in air through the OST. That's really good. Oh, and also in that fight, as a follow-up to what you said, they have a remixed version of Nothing Can Be Explained, which is so eerie after Yuha begins to explain to him, like, what his true, like, heritage is and everything, and Ichigo's kind of getting beaten down. You hear that, and it's very creepy in the background.
Yeah, I felt like it's good we talk about the music too, because I don't think a lot of people really have, like, really focused on that part as specifically as what we're doing right now. But I just felt like there were certain moments in the episodes where there was either too much silence, or the wrong OST was chosen, or it actually just didn't fit the aesthetic of Bleach. However, I will tell you guys a scene that I really did like when it comes to the both directing and the music. And that was not even a fight. It was the Aizen and Yuha meeting.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Like, the OST choice was so nice. It felt like it was something from Death Note. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just, like, really nice. Like, the whole atmosphere of the song was really good. It felt really intense. The coloring between, like, Yuha looking up at Aizen, the whole shift of sort of, like, their positions on the screen representing the whole god-related wording that Tite Kubo would always put in the manga. Like, he would refer to Aizen as, God has returned, God among the Shinigami.
Which killing God. Yeah.
Yep. All that stuff. So it was, like, really cool when it comes to symbolism. But also, I think a lot of people pointed this out. They said it was also possibly a reference to the Evangelion scenes that had a very similar positioning that what that did. Because in one of the episodes of Evangelion, there's a very similar thing when it comes to the really dark room and the positioning of one of the characters.
And like their perspectives and everything. That was probably like one of the best, I would say the best included scene that wasn't in the manga in the anime, which was also coincidentally in episode 6, just as it happened. So episode 6 is just like, that's the bottom line of this. Watch episode 6, basically.
Everybody who says that episode 7 is better. So 7 is a really good episode, but the problem is that it's only 5 minutes of good, whereas episode 6 is like 20 straight minutes of good. Like, all of it's good. The whole episode's insane. So that's why I do prefer episode 6. But I guess it really speaks to the fact that Kubo was able to make a villain, right? That is so interesting to listen to, like, when he talks, right? He's just so cool to have on the screen that all he has to do is speak, and we're like, well, that's as hype as a fight. All he has to do is just show his face, and then, like, we were like, oh my god, Aizen's back. So that's a big testament to how how great Aizen is as a villain, and I can't wait to see more of him in the future. I think they'll probably go more in depth with his fight later on.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they have to, because that fight at the very end, and spoilers are okay for this, I don't mind, but like at the fight at the very, very end was, a little bit rushed, so to speak,
I agree.
and there's scenes where, he busts out like the highest level Hado, and it's like that should be maybe expanded upon. Like it would have been cool to see that fight more.
Especially too, to add to that, Yuha did confirm that even he thinks it would be next to impossible to kill Aizen, so he's just like,
oh god,
wow,
yeah.
like
yeah.
yeah, like I know people might argue with me about saying that, but he's essentially saying is like, yeah, Aizen, like you being fused with that little ball, yeah, I don't really want to fuck with that because that thing's annoying. So you can just like go away. Like that's essentially how he looks at him.
Yeah.
So that's a big compliment to him. And we would both agree that one thing I'd love to see, like even if this goes a little bit off topic, I would really like to see Gerard Valkyrie, Lily Barrow, and some of the other Star Knight Elite Quincy's get more of a longer fight where they get defeated correctly. And then the final fight with Yuha and Ichigo and then Aizen and Renji and everybody else, like they really do need to go balls to the wall and give it an anime-only kind of stretched out ending because...
Oh, yeah, they do.
It needs to be, yeah.
I was just talking
about... It's got to go the
this.
Naruto route.
I was talking about, well, yeah, definitely not the Naruto route there with like a lot of the filler near the end. What
I do mean specifically, I'll say this and I'll let you go, but what I mean is, you know how like with Naruto versus Sasuke and a lot of the fights, like they really added a lot of content to the fight choreography itself and made it longer. That's what I want to see. So,
okay, yeah, that's understandable. Yeah, that's fine. I thought it was like, oh yeah, near the end of Naruto, we have like a bunch of fillers in between intersplicing the final battle.
Get
it's
that
like,
out of here.
God, that's so annoying. Naruto is really, not to slam it, but like if you calculate it out, there might be a comparable number of canon and filler episodes in the whole thing, and it's insane.
Because the new anime is going to have no filler, like it's all canon because Kubo works on it.
Yeah.
And, like it literally is. It's actually more canon now than the manga is.
No, it is.
Bleach's filler percentage is going down every time an episode releases for Bleach now, so thank God for that.
Yeah, no, Naruto was one of those ones where it had the most annoying filler in the middle of a battle, and they would give you like 3 filler episodes in a row, and then back to the battle, and then another 2 filler episodes. And I'm like, my God, this is the most frustrating. You can hate the Bount arc all you want, but the Bount arc was like 50 episodes in a row, here you go, and then back to the story.
Oh, that was a pain though.
I want to do a whole episode, dude. I want to do a whole episode of BANKAST analyzing the Bount arc because I took notes on it. I've watched it recently. It's like beat for beat the exact same as the Chapter Black Saga from Yu Yu Hakusho. It's insane how similar it is.
Oh, it's horrendous too because I think there was a detail I remember where it was like Ichigo can't go Bankai unless he's in the Soul Society or something like really weird like that. Do you remember that? I was like...
there's a thing where he can't use Bankai, unless he has to like relearn it, and it's weird and it's not really explained. But yeah, getting off topic, that's what we do on my channel.
Yeah, well, there is 2 things I want to say real quick.
Go ahead.
And so the way I knew the Bount arc was terrible was because when I was like 14, 15 watching Bleach for the first time, I'm like watching the anime not knowing what filler is, and I'm like, why did this series just get so shit all of a sudden? What the fuck's going on? Like that was like it was just crazy. So even as a teenager, I couldn't sit through it. And usually when you're younger, you can kind of watch like basically any anime and you're kind of cool. But yeah, the last thing I did want to say was because you brought up how like Naruto would like squirt like random filler like in the silliest parts, right? Do you remember back in the day when the Chikara filler arc came out in Naruto during like I think it was like during the war arc in a
that was that was the power like 6-part kind of I remember that yeah
so like I heard they were gonna make that a movie because the animation was good, but I just remember being like, bro, I don't care about this. Get this out of the way. I want to go back to the war. It was like because the war was getting juicy at the time in the anime, and they just like have like 7 episodes of just random like story that you don't care about.
Now granted, Bleach did do that too when we got to like, okay, Ichigo versus Ukiura, final 3rd battle, here we go. Zanpakuto filler, and then it's like, all right, and then Beast Sword. I'm like, okay, can we just get back to this? There was something interesting that happened with Bleach where there was like a large filler arc that sort of happened, right? And after the filler arc, the anime becomes HD quality because that's when they jump from that's when the jump was made. The transfer.
They went from I think it was like 4:13 or whatever it's called to 1080p.
Yeah, it was like 4:3 to 16:9 or
yeah. And then you can actually notice it a lot because, like, for example, the Grimjow fight ends with the old square-shaped screen with the black bars.
Yeah,
and then when it goes back to the Noyatora thing, now Grimjow's in HD, and you're like, what the hell? So, like, it was...
looks better, though. Looks cool. Like, all right.
Yeah, it does.
We ended up getting off on a big tangent with that, but, like...
Yeah, at least it shows we actually do care about the
No,
subject a
no,
lot.
we of
Like
course
even just talking about this is
care.
enjoyable.
And
So.
this is a tangent. I kind of remember where I left off though. What was I saying? I was
Go on,
saying,
go on.
oh no, I remember what it was. Okay, when I did the collab with Tomo last week, we were even talking about how we wanted their better scenes with the Zero Squad versus the Elite Guard of the Stern Ritter. Like that needs to be fixed up a little bit. Also, the fact that we talked about how like that first part of Bleach, like up until everything but the rain and Ichigo gets his swords, everything that where Core 1 left off, that was like a really good introduction. Not really a lot had to be changed from the manga with that. Not really anybody complained about that. But from this moment onward, some stuff happens that maybe needs to be rectified in the anime.
Yeah, I actually. Oh, this might annoy people.
No,
I
go for
was
it. Yeah,
really,
that's what we're here to do.
I was
Not
I
annoy
was really
people, but like, you know.
Yeah, like be honest about it. Like I think people would rather hear honesty than for me to
Absolutely.
pretend that I have taste about series that I don't. Like, who wants to watch a YouTuber is going to lie to them. I was like quite unhappy with the adaptation of the final episode of the season because I didn't like how much so Taguchi obviously really cares about Bleach, right? And it's cool that he's really trying his best to do this, but his character designs, like that he is consistently having the artists do for the episodes, is they're too soft in the faces and they're too like the lines aren't sharp enough when it comes to how edgy they're meant to be, like Bleach. And then when it comes to the last episode, like him oversaturating the episode with his rock hard on for the color pink, I was like, bro, this doesn't need to be in the episode. Like I don't mean it to be mean to the director, but I'm like, this really does not need to be in the episode because it doesn't have any continuity with the last anime, nor does it have any continuity with the manga, bro. Like, Kubo was not obsessed with pink. Like, it makes the episode feel weird because all he had to do was just copy the coloring from the old version of Ichigo's inner world that was in the old anime.
I didn't have a problem with the pink when we got, because the whole point of it is, like you said, the guy that's the art director here, he's the one that decides, like, okay, or the animation director, he's like, okay, so that color of pink is like called wild strawberry, and I think he just saw that color and it's wild strawberry, and Ichigo's name means strawberry, obviously. So then he was like, okay, that's going to be all throughout the intro, obviously Scar by Kishitani, that's in there, and then it was also in the inner world, and I was like, I didn't have a problem with it, but it was kind of like a jarring difference, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I guess like, I don't really think there's any other scenes throughout the final arc where we see Ichigo's inner world. I think this is the only real time we're there, unless they add something in the anime. But yeah, I guess it's just a pink sky now, which I'm like, all right, I'm okay with that. It was just different,
Yeah, I was the same with it. So when I watched it live, I was like, listen, I can watch this and it's fine, I can ignore it. But I was also like, if you want to really nitpick, considering we waited 10 years for this, like, there's got to be a bit more of strictness about this, where it's like, bro, like just try your best to just mimic the old anime, right? Do it in much more advanced new style animation, and do it how you want. Except things like that, I just felt were unnecessary because it really did feel like it saturated things. Again, with the music choices too, I just was really not happy with the actual music choice itself.
I mean, hey, everybody, it's okay to have like nitpicks and stuff. Is like, this is a product, like you said, we've been waiting a long time for this. Okay, and like I said, like with the music choices, that didn't sync up perfectly for me. It's not an absolutely 100% flawless
I'm glad
product.
you agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad you agree. Yeah. I just, at the end of the day, my priority is that I want the best for Bleach, and after waiting 10 years, like, I want this to be, it doesn't have to be perfect where the animators are almost dying from, animating every single frame to be perfect. I don't want, them to be stressed out and all that, but I want to make sure that things like they have enough time, things are adapted correctly. Here's another thing too. So people always argue, they say, oh, but Kubo said he's happy with it. This is the version he wants. The problem is that Kubo on record, like 3 different times, has verbally stated he's okay with things where it's kind of like, because he doesn't want to get too involved. And an example of that was the Hellverse movie. He actually said, oh, I don't really want to be classed as like a supporting director or writer because I don't feel like I've done enough for the movie. And it's like, he said stuff like that a lot where he's just happy that Bleach is back. And I'm like, it's obvious he is really assisting by adding in material that wasn't in the manga and all that, which is great. So don't get me wrong. I understand the difference there. But I also feel like people over-exaggerating that statement of, oh, but Kubo approved it. It's like, did Kubo approve every single part of the anime, like every single frame, every single choice by the director? That's where I'm always curious, and I'm like, I don't know, you probably should have just like stuck more to the source material than like added in your own flair to it, because it does go a bit off course to what I'm used to with Bleach.
So the bigger picture with that, even just beyond Kubo here, is when any author, whenever there's a product that comes out, whether it be a video game or a movie or something that, the main mangaka did not directly work on, and they say, oh, it's great, it's awesome. I always feel like, well, they're expected to say that, right? It's marketing, it's advertising.
Yes.
That's honestly, it's cutting all the bullshit. That's what it is at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like every single One Piece movie that's ever come out, Oda has been like, there's a new One Piece movie, go check it out. Some of them have been shit, so that's
I'm glad
take it with a little bit of grain of salt is the only thing I'm saying, Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that, because I use that same argument too when I remember I was debating someone on the legitimacy of the intro fight to Hellverse. They said like, they were like, oh, Vassal de Ichigo or Hollow Ichigo versus Ukiura, like they're like, oh, it's not canon and neither of the feats in the movie, and I was just and their counter argument was, oh, Kubo said he doesn't approve of the movie, and I'm just like, no, he never a single time said that. He just said that he felt like he wasn't involved enough. Like, why would he verbally come out there and shit on a movie which is going to hurt sales? Like Shonen Jump wouldn't do that. In fact, during the Shonen Jump interview with Tite Kubo, where he was talking about the new anime season coming out, which this interview was like 4 months ago now, they actually cut footage out of the interview, which you can see, because he started to talk about stuff that they didn't want him to talk about, and he's actually been in trouble in the past before for being very honest about certain things. So it's like, anything that goes against Shonen Jump's agenda, like there's no way he would be dumb enough to really like go overboard with stuff like that. Like, why would you effectively hurt the sales of a product which then benefits your series by saying, I don't approve of the movie? You just proved the point with Oda, because Oda's like, yo, go watch this movie which they've slapped my name on. Akira Toriyama with like, I think like 10 of the Dragon Ball Z movies aren't even canon, right? So like,
a good solid chunk of them, yeah. And by the way, to be fair, I want to clarify one thing. The last few One Piece movies I think have been good. I'm talking about like movie 5 was shit. I'm sure back in the day in 2004 when that came out, Oda was like, hey, here's a thing, go watch the movie. But it's like, not a great movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Hopefully people in the comments are, that they'll understand.
That's why I just wanted to clarify, because like I liked Film Red, I liked Film Z, the recent ones that came out. But
here is we'll cap off this part and go back to what we were talking about. But here is an example to back up what you said too. So I've noticed that over the past 7 to 8 years, that Shonen Jump has been asking the authors to be more involved in the movies. Like, for example, Naruto with the last 2 major movies had Kishimoto very involved, and it actually shows, because the movies.
Oh yeah, the last I remember was that had a lot of stuff that Kishimoto introduced. Yeah.
Oda was involved with most of the recent ones too. He like gave them a lot of script ideas and helped them out with the latest Dragon Ball movies too, like the Broly one, Battle of Gods, and Resurrection of Frieza. All those movies, right? The Frieza one's like not the best, but the other, all 3 together, they're still good. Like they're actually good movies.
They're really solid compared to like back in the day. Like the second Broly movie was absolutely horrible, and it's like I'm sure at the time that came out, Toriyama probably was quoted saying that like, go watch it. It's a Dragon Ball Z movie. True.
And one thing I did notice too back in the day with old anime movies, especially the Naruto Part 1 movies, things like the writing, the world setup is really foreign. They'll add in things into the world that don't even exist in the manga and anime, and it makes it feel foreign. And the characters, they act a bit off script. Like, for example, in even the first Broly movie from back in the day, the original Legendary Super Saiyan 1, I always thought that Vegeta was acting really weird all the time, and Goku was a little bit like bombastic and over the top. So things like that stick out like a sore thumb. But anyway, back to what we were saying.
Back to that,
I did actually want to expand on something to do with what you brought up about the Zero Squad. So I do like the idea of the Zero Squad getting more of a like justice, imposing fight where they finally get to be shown off right, and they don't just get like, one shot in their fights and so on. Because Nimaya and Ichibei are the only 2 who really flex and do anything. The others all just get shit on off screen.
Yeah, they just get one shot, and it's very pitiful.
Yeah, they all just get annihilated. But there's 2 ways to look at this. So a lot of people were really upset when Kenpachi got one shot by Yuha, and then the scene opens with him getting held up by the throat. Now that one makes sense. A lot of people who are like, no, that shouldn't have happened. Or Yamamoto shouldn't have got killed by a clone. It's like, you got to understand that for the pacing of the arc, it's not meant to be about giving those 2 characters justice right there. They were meant to be killed in really horrific ways to set the standard and the tone of how intense and strong the Quincy's are. So with Yamamoto, Yuha implies, he's like, listen, you didn't even get your arm healed, bro. You've gotten soft. Like, if you were in your prime and you had both your arms and you fought me with pure hatred like you did in the past, this battle would have been good, and I would have considered you a war potential. Then it goes to Kenpachi. Kenpachi, even if you were like excited for him to have some crazy battle, no narrative sense for him to be anywhere near Yuha's power. So of course he's going to get absolutely shit on. And then straight away, Unohana and Shunsui, they're like, well, it's time to train up our nuclear bomb for the war, because if we don't have him, we're probably going to lose. So that was a narrative like point that needed to happen. Now, with the Zero Division, okay, so it makes sense that most of them got blitzed and sort of shit on. However, you can't open up the arc by introducing these captains, which we've never even heard about up until this point, except for like a vague statement.
Kiryu, we've heard her name, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like Ruki Asei is the Royal Special Task Division back in the day, but I don't even think that's like the same thing as what she meant.
I don't think it is, because that's like she said that like only the Royal Special Task Force can handle Menos, and it's like, what?
Yeah,
lieutenants can take those out. Like, why do you?
Exactly. And what's funny with that was like the thing that we see straight afterwards, a couple of chapters, is the arrival of Renji and Byakuya. So it's very clear that. So it's like very clear that she meant like, you know, characters of that sort
Well,
of
you also
class.
got to remember that Kubo didn't even plan the Gotei. I mean, he was probably in the beginnings of planning the Gotei 13 at that moment in the story, so he probably didn't flesh out every little department, and he was going to be retconned later.
Absolutely. So when he does introduce the Zero Division into the Thousand Year Blood War, and we get to see the statement where it's like the combined force of these guys is more strong than the Gotei 13 entirely, or you know, something to that effect. It's like, all right, well, this is what happens, bro. It's like 50% Ichibei, 30% Nimaya, and then 20% for the rest.
Everybody
else. That's how it feels. Yeah. So I want to see, you know, I want to see Senjumaru, because she is such a cool looking character.
Oh,
she
God,
gives me,
yes.
Yeah, she gives me Sasori vibes from Naruto, and she didn't do anything.
Her stuff was, I think, pushed to the side more than anyone, because even when like Ichigo and Renji were training through each of the different palaces, we kind of just skip over hers. We have one flashback with her and like Renji being in the palace, and so we don't really get a lot from that front. They kind of skip over Ichibei's as well, but Ichibei has a lot more stuff with the fight with Yuha, obviously, so we learn more about him. Yeah, Senjumaru just has the moment with Nyanzel and kills him, and then after that, not really.
And they all just get like Lily Burrow's like, yo, stand in a line for me, bang, and they're all dead.
Yeah,
like,
they're all dead. Yeah.
And then straight after that, you've got Mr. Funny Face, old man. Like every panel, Kubo spent like a whole 10-hour session just making his face look hilarious, like throughout the Yuha fight. You got Ichibei and Yuha having like this Man of Steel Zack Snyder fight, right? Like just punching each other in the head. Like it's a really good. I actually feel like that fight's gonna blow people's minds.
It's gonna be unbelievable. I can't wait for the Ichibei fight. Yeah. That's gonna be wild. Nimaya even really didn't do as much as I thought. He one-shots most of the Royal Guard, and then he takes down Gerald Valkyrie, and then no, he takes down Askin. Askin gets up, shows his ability, which Askin's my favorite Stern Ritter, so I'm like, oh, cool. And then after that, it's like, oh no, he, you know, little bit of difficulty, but takes him down, no problem. My problem was like, okay, the Holy Selection occurs, the Aswalen occurs, and then they just immediately like flip the script, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, did they get that much more powerful just using the Aswalen? Like, Jesus.
You know, I don't even mind the idea of the Star Knights getting that OP, because you know, they explain, like Lily Barrow's like, listen, like we didn't get a power up, we just got our powers.
That's right. Yeah, they had the return to their form.
Yeah. So I like that detail, but the big issue that I guess most of the audience have, and I do agree, is that the other Zero Division members, and even Nimaya too, like I would like to see Nimaya go Bankai or Shikai or do something crazy like that too. Like we have got to see those fights get extended, because they don't do what they're represented in name whatsoever. Like except for Ichibei and then like pseudo Nimaya's like blitzing of half of the Quincy, like that's all. Like we got to see more. I want to see Senjumaru do some crazy stuff. I want to see them have like an episode of each long fight, and then like that'd be good. They've got to do something like that. Yeah.
I feel like you could have honestly, like they could have like, okay, they got their original powers back. I feel like it still didn't need to be a one-shot. You could have them fight for a little bit and still have them lose, and I think the effect would have been the same. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, okay, Lilia Barrow's back at his full power. He struggles a little bit against Nimaya, and then he just eventually ends up shooting him down. Something like that. I'd be like, okay, yeah, there you go, yeah.
You know, you could also use it too. Like, you could have it so Nimaya, when he fights Lily Barrow, like, he sort of like hypes up, you know, he sort of like is used as a plot device to also hype up how strong the Lily Barrow is by also being like, you know, even in this Bankai state, his gun is so annoying because it fires instantaneously and things like that. Because it's not like we're going to even see the full power of Lily Barrow anyway, because he won't go into his Volständig until later. So like, you know, it doesn't really take anything away, but it also at the same time makes the Zero Division look cool like they're supposed to, because they really do get jobbed so hard in the manga.
Absolutely. And then when you get to the Stern Raiders, not even just Lilia, but then you get to Gerald, who's like on his own. You could have a discussion on that, like
Yeah,
what he
yeah.
does, where his power is literally he doesn't lose. Yeah.
He's disgustingly strong. Like that was one of the most insane things about the manga's conclusion that
Oh yeah, that was like, how are they gonna get out of this? And I'm like, oh, okay.
I made a video like how to defeat Yuha Bark, and I talk about how like I won't go into it too much because it'll go on for a while. But I was just talking about how like the Miracle, the Miracle and Lilibara by themselves, like those two as Yuha Bark's teammates are so overpowered that like they could kill multiple captains by themselves. Like the Miracle is just unstoppable, and then Yuha's like, I don't really need him.
Yeah,
It makes
just
things
like,
too
what?
easy.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess. But that's the only way it made sense, because otherwise, like, they blew off his head, and it's like, okay, that didn't work, and he just made him stronger. I'm like,
He just kept transforming too, which was wild. But
God, yeah.
like I did have a plan of like how you could defeat him and it would make sense in the manga. But like on top of that, it's also just like at the end of the day, yeah, I do really want to see the Zero Division get done correctly, because you know what's funny? Like, let's say in like a year or two, we do another video like this.
Yeah.
You and I could sit here and literally talk about how the Star Knights also deserve to have proper justice, because the top Quincy's, like those guys, like the Miracle, Lilibara, Askin. Well, Askin does have a fight that's fleshed out, so I won't say
his
him,
is one of the more is like explained.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it was. You could tell Kubo really loved that character.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, he actually reminds me of Joseph Joestar. Like, with
Oh
his,
yeah, totally. Yeah.
His face, the whole running away from Grimjar thing, it reminds me a lot of him. But that being said, he gets fleshed out really good, and he's a great character. But the other two, those guys are so strong that it feels like it feels wrong the way that they get sort of like jobbed out the series. So I'd like to see those guys also get a proper adaptation in the anime too. But I guess like, so we did skip past most of the episodes in this season, but when we look at like the previous ones too, like the past, like 1 through 6 and then after that too, what parts for you stuck out the most in those ones, like especially the older ones? Because for me, I liked the Black Getsuga Tensho. I liked the way that they put so much emphasis on the background designs were really clean. And I think I'm right about this, but I said on stream while I was watching episode 1 and 2, I'm like, wow, these backgrounds look like something from Death Note or Attack on Titan. They're so highly detailed. Like, I really enjoyed the landscape of Karakura Town and like even the Soul Society and all that. And they really did put a lot of effort into those scenes. And the Getsuga Tenshos was so nice. But my biggest complaint, and then I'll let you go, is I just really fucking hope they stay away from CGI in season 2. Just get it away.
Yeah. Well, like, okay, yeah, whenever there's CGI in anime, it's always very obvious, and it's like, okay, I see what you did there. But no, I loved that opening shot with, Ryunosuke and Shino arriving, and yeah, like you said, because that was used in all the trailers, the detail in the town. Like, I remember reviewing that episode and just pausing and looking at the town, and like, you could see, like, cars driving way in the background and stuff.
Traffic lights.
People have pointed this out, and it's hilarious when they're fighting the Hollows and Chad uses La Muerte. You could see people in the windows, like, walking around in the apartment that he just slams into. Like, those people are dead. All right.
I was watching that episode on stream, that like when it drops, and everyone's hype, and I'm like, who the fuck directed this? He just killed like 20 people, bro.
Oh no, like, it was like an entire apartment building. Like, there were children in there. Like, Jesus,
you know what else too? Ichigo was like, one sec, let me just Modern Warfare 3 Moab this whole fucking area. Like, literally just killed, like, probably
nuke!
Yeah, literally. Like, his Getsuga went off like an actual Moab and probably killed so many people. And then it's like, I guess we'll write that off on Urahara's, like, receipt book. I mean,
to be fair, if, we didn't really see that in the manga, but if they were busting out their strongest moves, Ichigo's going Bankai in the middle of a populated city, there will be casualties. There will be people. You can't just go Bankai in the middle of, like, on top of a residential building and no negative effects would have occurred,
Especially that form. Because, like, bro, when he went Bankai against Ginjo, he destroyed, like, a whole dimension. Yes! Like, just from going into the form, it's like, all right, I understand, like, so when you look at that scene, it's probably meant to be like okay, it happened, but it also at the same time there were no fatalities type thing. Like you're just meant to ignore that part, and it's meant to
Oh
be
no,
like,
you're meant to ignore it
Bleach is
completely. Otherwise, it's horrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like Bleach is back, just be hyped. But I'm just like, bro, you probably could have directed that differently because that was like,
I'm not even mad at it just because like of all the memes that came from it. Like I saw that
Yeah.
Chad just murdering an entire apartment building for weeks after that, and
Did
I'm
you see?
like, all right.
Did you see the Spider-Man one with Aunt May? Like when she's like she's sitting inside, and then it blows up the whole room because it's a Green Goblin, but it's
Yes,
Chad doing
it's
it.
Chad. I saw that one. Oh my
It
god!
was so good.
So just it's okay as long as the internet can make memes of it. Like it's fine. But other than that, probably in the earlier episodes, the thing that I was just most excited for was the fact that they bridged Uryu's connection with the Vandenreich a little bit. So it's like okay, because in the manga that is a problem where the last time we see him is in Ichigo's room, like, sorry, can't go to Hueco Mundo with you. Cut to 60 chapters later, I'm a member of the Vandenreich now. And it's like, okay, that needs to be explained. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That was good, actually. I really enjoyed how they didn't just show the Shunsui flashback where he sees Yamamoto's Bankai drawing on the painting, sorry, to be more specifically on the wall,
yes.
but the Quincy's also kept journals of that to show off the form, and I really enjoyed that because, you know how Aizen made the contingency plan against Yamamoto to make Wonder Wise to seal his sword. Now I always argue this because he's aware of the full extent of what his powers can be, because like that Bankai is famous amongst the Soul Society as being like the strongest. So of course, like if any character is going to know that, it's going to be Aizen. You know, he's one of the smartest characters in the series. Like that would be silly to assume otherwise. Now, to further back that claim, it was cool to see, well, bro, random Quincy's around the world have depictions of him drawn in journals that they had from 1,000 years ago. So it's just cool little details like that I really enjoyed. They really expanded upon the Ryukin and Uryu dynamic and further like that. That was good. So
yeah, they really cemented in that like Yamamoto was basically akin to like a fire god war deity like back in the day when he was just massacring like everybody. And that's how the Gotei like were formed. They were just a ragtag like motley crew of just like killers that just had really fancy outfits. That's basically what the Gotei was.
He literally was just like back in the day, he's like, all right, you guys are strong, we're forming a society, stick with me, otherwise you're dead. Like,
that's a boss move too. Yeah, I'm doing a whole video on, I haven't done it yet, but I'm in work in progress on the original Gotei, and I'm really excited to talk about all of them because they're pretty cool designs.
Yeah, so for a couple of years now, I've been planning to do like an hour plus video on explaining how strong Yamamoto is, because
that's how much you need to use. Yeah.
Seriously, you do. Like, he's such a complicated character, and a lot of people don't follow the scaling of the series correctly with the way that Kubo depicts it throughout, like, arc to arc, and like, you know, the Yuha statement and just all these little nuances like this. But yeah, I really do like the way that he was shown off in the anime, because, like you said, he really comes across as like some sort of mythological Japanese fire demon god thing, and that's like how he's even drawn. Like, it's even when Kubo does the chapters, he uses like this sort of style of like old Japanese like painting,
calligraphy kind of style. Yeah.
Oh, it's so clean. But speaking of memes, right? Because you mentioned before about the Chad, you know, killing a lot of innocent people. Seen the animated clip that someone made of Rukia's ass in the spa? Like, when
I love that one. Yeah, that was one. I was like, that's perfect. Okay, all's right with the world. We're good.
It's quite funny, like, to think that they were willing to pseudo show Masaki being nude. They were also willing to show like all this like intense gore, which people were really happy about. But they wouldn't show Rukia's ass. I'm like, that's surprising.
That was the surprising. Also, the thing with Rangiku during Ishin's backstory, that was also kind of censored or cut over. And they said that, like, oh, we're going to cut out some comedy moments if they don't really mesh with the story. And I'm like, yeah, but that was like a moment that was like, who cares? That wasn't like a serious moment.
Which one was that, by the way? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, that was the one where, that was the one where Rangiku knocks Ishin out of the tree. And then Ishin's like, Rangiku, and it gets all serious. And then she's like, what? And he's like, your boobs are really shiny today. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like she hits him again. Yeah. That's all cut out of the episode. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, there was two of those. There was the Masaki one with the boobs, and there was also there was that scene. I guess the reason why they didn't want to do the Rangiku one is kind of like, I guess they don't want to depict Ishin as too much of a perv, because in the original anime, anime and manga, he is quite a, like, he says some sus stuff.
It's worse in the manga than it is in the anime. But yeah, they cut some stuff out, but nothing that was like. They actually, here's the thing. They actually cut out a lot of stuff with the other Vizards that are in the living world, like Hiyori and stuff. That's like in the first or second chapter, and they cut all of their stuff out, kind of witnessing the rips in the dimension that's kind of like cut. So that's like, because that's going to become a plot point later, and it's weird that they cut those out, but they could just include them later. I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I was actually, this is interesting you say that. I was really, really, really unhappy with the adaptation of the Kilge fight. Like, I thought that could have been done so much better. So the first parts were good. When he's stabbing all the Aronkars, he goes Vollständig and the music's playing. I'm like, all right, this is fucking hype. Like, it was good. But once it started to get to the actual animation part, like when they're fighting intensely, it was really sloppy. Like, I was quite unhappy with his transformation forms. They even cut the part where he finds the Aronkar, well, the Fraction girls. Like, they were hidden in the invisible shell, and it's gone out of the anime. I'm like, bro, that was a big deal because it shows his spiritual pressure detection is that intense that you can't even hide if you're invisible from him. Like,
I think it was just him being able to use the Sklavre ability, just like, because that ability was Sung-Sung's, and it was like, I'm going to turn my body into camouflage, and then everything's Reishi, so he just rips it apart with the Reishi, and you're like, oh, there you are.
Yeah, and he auto knew where they were, too. He was just like, nah, I know you guys are hiding. And then he just like, absorbed everything. And like that was just, I know people would say it's not the biggest deal, but at the same time it also is, because this is season 1. We wait 10 years. And I'm like, bro, you have to include every major fight moment. Like, these are important things to the series. Like, even if it might be something that you perceive as minute, because I wanted to see him be done justice.
There was even a little scene after that where when they were hiding with that ability, Mila Rose even talks to Orihime a little bit for like some character development, where she's like, wait a second, you were the princessa that Aizen brought back. What are you doing back here? That was even a nice little moment with them, and that was cut.
Something people sort of forget about Kilge is that he's not like the other Quincy's, except for the Star Knights. Now, he was specifically set, right? He was specifically set in Hueco Mundo to be the guy that manages that entire realm for Yuha Bark.
Yeah,
like,
the hunting realm captain. Yeah.
Yes. Like, that guy is essentially, he's got his own category. Now, I'm not saying he's as, he's like stronger than a heap of the Quincy's, but he is most definitely, if not at Star Knight, below that level, because he fights with, full bring Bankai Ichigo very consistently. He absorbs Ion super easily. He's like messing around in half the fight too. His absorption ability is crazy. His Quincy jail ability is crazy. Even Yuha's like, bro, I'm kind of surprised you broke out of that thing, Ichigo. So like, that's just like, he was a really powerful character, and it should have, because he really sort of like encapsulates the evilness, the darkness, that whole callback to, obviously we know that the Quincy's are inspired by a certain army.
A certain army that we maybe cannot say on YouTube, but yes, we all get it, yeah.
So he is a symbol, like he symbolizes that, plus how hardcore the Quincy's are, and I'm like, you gotta go a bit more hardcore on that fight. You gotta make sure every single part of that is cleaned up. And probably the Blu-rays will do that, but like you even said, there was even dialogue removed that shouldn't have been removed.
Yeah, it was removed. And also, by the way, just going with Kilge's design, there was a very notable member of that particular German army that, that's his design is based off of that. Like, he literally looks like that with the glasses and everything.
So he's a mixture of Marilyn Manson with the glasses, and then he's obviously inspired directly because Heinrich Himmler's role in that.
There it is, that's the combination. Now, I always viewed Kilge as he was a Stern Ritter, and I think in the manga it doesn't actually state he's a Stern Ritter. In the anime, he does actually say, like, Stern Ritter J. And I always felt like he was a Stern Ritter that was just given really important extra duties and extra position. And Yuha, like, there's some of the Stern Ritters that he doesn't really talk that highly of, but then, Kilge, he kind of talked very highly of like, I sent him to kind of deal with you, kind of thing.
Yes, he specifically gave him the data to go after to Ichigo, and then he also was confident that Kilge was not only strong, but strong enough to hold off Ichigo so they could complete their duties in the Soul Society, and then by the time like he would arrive, or he wouldn't even be a part of the equation. So like that is true. Like, he really did actually give him a role. So like, if you look at like Kubo's writing with Ukiura, we all know is obviously like the special one out of all the Espada, and the same thing applies to Kilge when it comes to not in terms of power, but just specifically his role of like, yo, I'm giving you a special duty. You manage all of Hueco Mundo. Get that done for us. So that's clearly a big deal.
Yeah, and I actually just realized that Yuha kind of put too much faith in him, because at the in episode 7, he's like, oh man, you broke out of the jail because you're part Quincy. I should have thought about that a little more. So it was kind of like Yuha's like, okay, I need to, figure out a way to trap Ichigo Kurosaki. I'm going to send one of my strongest soldiers to deal with it. And he's like, oh, man, I shouldn't have sent one of my strongest. I should have sent like a random Iran card because of the Quincy. I didn't think of that. So, and it kind of does give it a whole new perspective on Kilge's status. But yeah, his fight, like you said, one of my least favorite in this first part. It was cool to finally see it animated, but there were so many better ones.
That was an interesting point too, because he didn't keep in mind that by Ichigo swapping blows with a higher rank Quincy, their spiritual pressure would activate his own. So it was one of them things where he's like, crap, I didn't even think about that. So I should just send, like you said, a heap of those like pseudo Aronkar Quincy things after him, because it's so weird how they can use Quincy powers.
Yeah, it was weird. They're just Aronkars that have Quincy crosses that make bows, right? That's all they are. Yeah, it's weird.
What else stood out to you afterwards, though, like when we go further into the episode?
Yeah, so let's see. I think we covered a lot of the the gore. There's a lot of blood. The second episode, the one I reviewed, actually got age restricted on my channel because I think it was just all the dead Aronkar and hollow bodies that were everywhere. Wow. That was pretty brutal. So that's good to know because in the first generation Bleach anime, the scene where Chad fought against Yami, that was heavily edited. The scene I think most notable is when Uryu fought Ukiura. He lost his hand. That was just like a broken arm in the anime. So it's
just like rips it off.
Yeah, he just rips it off. This is a lot of blood here, so it's like Bleach as it was intended. It's definitely rated R for a lot of the stuff it is. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the scene in the old anime? There is a gore version of it that was made where Grimmjow stabs Loopy with his hand and he just like puts it straight through, and you can see because there was the TV version, then there was the gore one, and I'm just like, every now and then there was a bit of gore back in the day, but a lot of it was like implied stuff, like how in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure they show, the
like blacked out, like shadowy,
yeah, like he's smoking a cigarette, but it's blacked out and stuff like that. Like they're real vague about it and so on. But there was a part where I think Bambietta was slicing through Shinigami, and it was
it was brutal. I
was like, whoa.
Yeah, she was like straight up decapitating everybody. I was going to say that. It was a good thing that the gore exists because you can't do the Kenpachi versus Unohana fight without having gore. Like, her Bankai's literally just summoning a pool of blood, for God's sake.
And have you seen the Chinese censorship edits where they make blood white? It would look pretty funky during that fight.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah. She's some Minazuki, and it's just a pool of just jizz. I'm like, oh my God, it's everywhere. But no, that was a pretty metal fight to finally see that animated as well.
Yeah, that actually, well, I guess we should put emphasis
Let's talk about that, why not? I mean, we're just jumping all over the place. That's what we do here on an old teching BAN-KAST video.
I guess, that's what people, they just want to hear you and I just spit shit about Bleach, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I didn't write anything down for this. I was just like, I'll just bullshit with him about Bleach for an hour or so. We'll be good. Yeah.
Easy. So that fight was, that was a fight that a lot of people were looking forward to, because I feel that if you compare Naruto and Bleach together, Naruto is very famous for how depressing and sad a lot of the fights are. Now, Bleach, on the other hand, has only had a handful of those moments. A lot of the time in the series is very much, like everything but the rain, the Ukiura dying part and all that. But even still, I always looked at the Ukiura fight as I'm like, I don't feel compassion for this guy or Grimmjow or half of the Espada, because up until the moment they died, that's when we get their backstory, and it's all given to us in one big, right there you go, that's all their backstory. And I'm like, but how do I feel bad for a guy that was just killed Ichigo twice that same day? You know what I mean? There was a lot of it where it's I respect and love the poetic writing of the character, but if you look at Unohana versus Kenpachi, that was a fight that people were looking forward to, because it actually encapsulated a really not only depressing sort of removal of a character from the series, but we finally got to see Kenpachi delved into a lot more than in the past, because a lot of it was mostly, we know he likes to fight and he holds back, and that was the extent of it, right? He just talks shit.
And now we have him okay, he's crying, he's emotional. This is the one thing in his life that it's more than just fighting to him. I mean, it is just fighting. He loves battle. He says as much, but it's this is the one person that's ever been able to give him true joy in battle, and he has to kill her. So,
and they both feel that for each other too, because Unohana says a similar remark too.
Exact same thing, yeah.
That was and that was really good, because the way Kubo draws it in the manga and then the way it was animated, it's so beautifully done. Unohana's hair, the part where she gets stabbed, all her transformations, when they clash, it's drawn so heavily in the manga. I like the detail the anime went with this the sword in terms of how shiny it was, and like when they would clash, there was sparks, and like how intense the actual combat was during the Bankai scene, which wasn't as highly done in the manga, but it was really good. I really enjoyed that fight a lot, to be honest. Oh, I will say this: the one thing I really liked the most was when the voice actor for Unohana said Bankai. That was so well done.
Yeah. And I loved the Bankai theme where it's like that like high energy like violin that just kicks in when she activated her Bankai. I'm like, that was a good touch. That was awesome. It's almost like the violin begins to play as her katana just drips down into this pool of blood, and it just worked really well.
Looks like she's like doing a performance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it really is. Like, and that's her performance in battle. By the way, since we're on the subject of that, we still didn't get a definitive explanation on what her Bankai did, but the way I interpreted it now was it's a Bankai that allows pure offensive. She can summon the blood out of like blades and stuff, or blades out of the blood, but it also, the blood will heal her along the way. So that's basically like the ultimate heal and then damage kind of Bankai. That's the way I interpreted it.
Yeah, so they say that Bankais can evolve and change over time. That's what Yamamoto says to Yuha, and that's what Aizen emphasizes continuously. He's like, becoming one with the sword, which is like some Buddhism type thing, which like Kubo pseudo wrote into the story, and like it's all about like the philosophy of the series, essentially, right? That he was trying to put in there. You would see over time that Aizen, when he fused with his sword, Kyoko Soigetsu was now harder to stop because it's a part of his body. Ichigo fused with his blade and his Dongai form, became this just overpowered, like, Superman type character that was just throwing Aizen into the ground with his bare hands, like, just really overpowered characters. Now, Unohana says in the manga and anime that one of the things she wanted to do was, she's like, I can't be as defensively good as Kenpachi, as I'm not as raw in terms of power. I can't take as much damage. So what I'm going to do to fill that blank is I'm going to be one of the best healers, so that I can always like take part in battle as long as possible and auto heal myself. And that's what she was doing. Every time she get cut, it'd just go and then it's back. She's healed up again. And maybe like that was part of it. Maybe that was always her power, but her character did always revolve around her Kido when it comes to her healing. And then the fact that her Bankai is so, heavily based around that, like, instant regeneration, which, like, even it's probably better than Ukiura's, like, for all we know. But it's like, ooh, it's pretty much to the point. I'd probably say that's why it is. Like, her Bankai probably became that, or it's just pure luck that she was
something along those lines involving blood, because the way that Yuha talked about it, or I guess it was Royd at the time, was like, how did Yamamoto's Bankai change? And he's like, well, the power is fire. Like, that's set in stone. It's always going to be fire, but it has evolved to an even powerful form of fire. So you could look at, like, Unohana's Zanpakuto's Bankai is blood-based, and so she, maybe back in the day, could injure people with the blood, but as she learned Kaido, the healing Kido and everything, it evolved to heal her as well.
Yes, good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this too. I know this is me, just being pedantic here, but in case someone's like, what do you mean it's better than Ukiura's healing? Well, Unohana with just her Kido alone was able to put Hiyori back together when she was really cut in two. And like Ukiura said, he can't heal internal organs like his brain and stuff like very well. So that's
you also got to understand, like, this healing ability is really powerful. Like Kenpachi lops off like her hand or her fingers at one point, and she just like bloop, 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 and just grows them back with Kido. That's insane. One more thing, because I know you brought up Ukiura's fight, and I wanted to add to that, and I know it's not anything to do with this arc, but I wanted to throw it out there. Is sympathy for Ukiura. I think a lot of people do feel that. And you said it, like, the poetic nature of his death is one of the most, like, I think one of the best things Kubo's ever written, because his literal aspect of death was, like, nothingness, or I think nihilism sometimes. It's translated nihilism. And the idea is he doesn't feel anything, and right before he dies, he figures out what the heart is, and it's almost like him realizing what the emotion of, like, what that is to have a heart. Then he dies. And it's just like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is, because his whole character was essentially like, because every time he speaks to Orihime, and I did like this nuance of his character where when Orihime slaps him, he doesn't strike her back. And I was like, obviously he can't do it because Aizen would be upset. But he also just doesn't do it at all. Like, he doesn't show anger. He just walks away and he's like, whatever. I know I'm like, I could easily kill her if I wanted to. It's not a problem. I'm like, all right, we slowly see like this character develop from that and those scenes. We slowly see this character develop from those scenes to later on. He has these continuous conversations with Orihime about what is the heart. He's like, how could you have hope in this world as someone who is so damn weak when at any moment I could literally just splat your brains across the wall? I
Yep.
could, like, chop you in half with my bare hand. I could do whatever I want because he literally could. He's that physically strong, right? And that's when he
Absolutely.
puts it, he puts his fingers onto her chest, and then he's like, is it there or is it where your brain is? It's like he wants to understand it because he really can't comprehend that. Because in his backstory, which is in
Yeah, the
the data book,
unmasked. Yeah.
yeah, you see, like when he's born into the world, it's really depressing. Like he can't even speak. I think half of his senses don't even exist. He's just walking around in like in just the endless the sands of Hueco Mundo. And then as he has these continuous conversations with both Orihime and then Ichigo, it's like, dude, like I just transformed into a form that I haven't even shown eyes, and like I'm stronger than all the Espada right now, like, and I've kept this a secret, and like you're still not giving up. How? I could do anything I want to right now, and you won't give up. He just couldn't understand it
Yeah,
with
it was
Ichigo, and
because
then
it's literally beyond his comprehension. His nature just won't
yeah,
allow it. And then when he finally does, he dies. And it's like
yeah,
that's beautiful. I love it.
it really is good because it's a mixture of like he dies like due to his sins, but he also learns the one thing he was having trouble with at the same time, and it's
Mm.
like it's all happens in one moment. It makes the audience question. Now, I'm glad he was never brought back for the sole fact of don't ruin a good
Oh,
written
I'm
character,
hoping.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, because
yeah,
there's a
but
lot of manga that do that, and it's like he
yes,
had a perfect end. We don't need to
yes, he
bring him
did.
back. Yeah.
He did, but the perfect thing that it also did is that Kubo was able to make the audience sort of sit there and question, all right, you like this character now, don't you? Imagine if he was on the good side. Like, that's what you sort of think to
Yep.
yourself. You're like, oh shit, he could have been like this big powerhouse hollow that backed them up and
What
been
if
like one of their
things went?
boys.
What if things went different, and Orihime managed to sway him over to their side, and like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah. Well, he's dead now. He's Ash.
Oh, it's
Um.
just all that. See, that's a good character because I'm getting hyped thinking about the potentials right there. Like,
Yep.
that's.
Yep.
Mm,
Yeah. Ukiura's always been a fan favorite, man. He's
oh,
emo,
he's so
but we
cool.
love him.
Especially, by the way, last thing.
Yeah.
It is funny. You would know this, like growing up in the early 2000s. Like a lot of people that grew up in like that MySpace, early Facebook,
Oh
like
yeah.
the old, emo and goth type days, of the old
Yeah.
internet, right? Breaking Benjamin AMVs, like that character, literally, like he's the epitome of an OP emo. Like back in them
Yep.
days, like he's cool.
You could put him into like Breaking Benjamin or like Panic at the Disco and like their first like very emo album
Kill
they
it.
did, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that works fine. The hair all
Three
time
Days
low or
Grace.
whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
Linkin Park AMVs and all that
oh,
too.
Linkin Park was, and going back to Bleach, how many like Bleach AMVs back in the day were all Linkin Park? Like there was a time period every anime AMV was Linkin Park, crawling in my skin, like that's all it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So many. There's like a lot of them have been taken down, but there was a lot of Bleach AMVs back in the day, and this is what always blew my mind with the idea of it never coming back. I'm like, bro, go watch all these old AMVs with the old internet, like, because a lot of the kids growing up nowadays, like, they don't remember the old internet of the 2010s
Oh
and,
God,
like
no.
the
Yeah.
2007 period. Like, Bleach and Naruto AMVs and Dragon Ball, some of those AMVs had like 30 million views,
Oh,
and that's back 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
it
that
was
was wild.
absurd. I remember there was a really, really good one that was Naruto versus Ichigo, and they edited together the scenes and the music, and I'm like, God, that was
Mhm.
like peak. You don't really see, mostly because of content IDs and stuff, but you don't really see any good AMVs anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always got to be so careful with that. But
Oh yeah.
speaking of that too, I'll just close off this part. I won't go too into it. But I do remember to add to that whole idea of Bleach never coming back. You've probably seen this yourself. Do you remember back in the day when Ukura versus Ichigo was uploaded to YouTube, the full fight back then? That shit had 40 million views. Like, I remember watching that exact video that got taken
Yep.
down, and I was like, I'm like, bro, like, if you think Bleach can't pop off big time when it comes back, like, you're smoking
People, yeah,
something.
people love it, and it's just like, I don't know if it was like when it first ended. I guess the ratings weren't doing. I mean, the manga wasn't doing that well in Japan at that point, but like that's an example of Dragon Ball effect. Like popular in Japan, huge in the West, because that was like
Yes,
gateway
yes.
anime for everybody. If you were a '90s kid, it was Dragon Ball. If you were a little bit older, like I was, I was born in '93, but I didn't start watching anime until like '05, '06, and then that's when Bleach was like Adult Swim, there it is.
We found out, by the way, that that the director of the original anime in the studio, they said it was literally never cancelled. They confirmed 3 times that it was because they had no material for filler, and they didn't want to spend like 2 years doing filler so Kubo could draw the war. Like that was actually what happened.
That's fair, honestly, yeah, because they would have to do they would have to do another huge like Bount arc level filler, if not longer. And it's like
they actually asked Kubo for material, and he said, I don't really have like any outlines for like a full arc for you guys. Like, I'm sorry, I'm really busy with the manga.
Yeah, that's fair, because it's like, this is the final arc. I got to do this, you know what I mean? I got to work on that. Yeah. So it's like, hey, we got to wait for a while to bring it back. And I think it honestly helped, because there's been a huge resurgence of, like, you know, the supernatural, like, kind of manga, like Demon Slayer is a good example of that. That's really popular. Jujutsu Kaisen is another one. And I think those, like, Bleach kind of started that one particular subgenre of that. Maybe a little bit of Yu Yu Hakusho as well, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would say straight away. I'd say, Yu Yu Hakusho was one of the main ones back in the day, but then Bleach became the big mainstream one that really made it pop off. So without a doubt.
All right, so now moving on, let's just go to the final section of this where we get into the everything but the rain and Ichigo's backstory and all that.
So when you just like watch this season in a vacuum, like you just sit there and just enjoy it for the fact that Bleach is back. You get to binge watch and watch Bleach every week as it sort of comes out. I really enjoyed it, right? But I had some complaints that I said on stream multiple times that people were really angry about, and I was like, I didn't like the CGI rain because they used this exact clip like 3 times in the episode where it shows the rain coming down in slow motion. And I was like, I just don't like it because it sticks out like a sore thumb. The CGI was too noticeable. And I felt like White's fight with Ishin was nowhere near as good as it was in the manga. Like, to be honest, like I was quite disappointed with the actual fight. But if you sit those two things aside, the portrayal of that part of the series and how much more in-depth they went with like the relationship between Ishin and Misaki was done really well. So I can't complain about that. I did have two major things though, is that again, like with the pink over sort of saturation of some of the episode things.
Not a big fan of the pink, the wild strawberry color or whatever it's called. Yeah.
There's 3 things. So the pink oversaturation, I felt like it doesn't fit Bleach's aesthetic. I feel like dark blues and dark grays and colors like that are very much Bleach's look. The use of the orange inside of White's inner world and like the yellow was just so annoying to look at because it just doesn't fit the way that it's like that how Bleach looks. Like it's meant to be more of a darker color and more of a grim look to it. And then oh my god, in the Garganta, this is one I forgot to mention before. Earlier in the season, bro.
Go ahead.
That Garganta scene when they're running right across the Garganta looked like some shit from Scooby-Doo. Like that was really bothersome to see.
You mean like the animation, like the running cycle of them going?
Yeah, okay. On the pathway with like the weird like CGI Yu-Gi-Oh back of a card type aesthetic they had. Like it just didn't look right. I was like, nah, bro, you should have just copied the old anime and used that design and then made it more updated to today's technology. Like it was just a little off-putting, but those are some things I do want to vocalize before we no, that's fine. And
it's like, look, like okay, so I've always, this is going to be weird, I've never really focused on animation quality unless it's really bad. You know, like I think an example of that was like remember Dragon Ball Super when it first came out, like some of the screenshots of those were horrid. That I noticed. I
know I'm nitpicking, but it was
you're fine. And then the rain, I was okay with the rain as like the transitionary. I know they do use it quite a bit, but they use it as the transitions between different scenes. I'm like, I'm okay with that because I get it. It's everything but the rain, so we're going to use the rain a lot. I like that. The fight with White, though, I will say they could have done a lot more cool stuff with that. They even cut out the scene where Ishin's Bankai was mentioned, maybe because they didn't want to make it like a little confusing, like, you know, we're not going to see Ishin's Bankai here, so maybe that's why they cut that section out. But that was a little, I was a little disappointed in that.
In my Yuha Baha video, however you want to say it, essentially I said that's a really smart thing to do to finish off the miracle would be to have it so that when Ryukin and Ishin appear, they fight the miracle and then make it so that Ishin's Bankai is able to defeat the miracle. Like it's some sort of like anti-hacks OP thing that like is able to, you know, stop the miracle because at least, you know, Ishin regroups with, oh my god, it's my boy Toshiro. I haven't seen you in like 20 years. What's up, man? Like, you know, like that'd be cool. Yeah, and then he backs him up. Ishin goes Bankai. The fans go, holy fuck! Like, you know, like so that'd be cool.
Dude, that would have been perfect too, because now you have two veterans that have never done like anything in the story finally showing up, and they would have access to some crazy techniques. I just thought of one right now. What if Ishin's Bankai allows him to like turn his opponent's Ryatsu into fire to make him even stronger. And so it's like a back and forth thing where he cuts the miracle and he gets stronger and Ishin absorbs more of his fire and then just keeps bouncing it back and forth and eventually just Gerald just explodes or gives up or something.
Honestly, like the Shivas have some really cool techniques and stuff.
Do,
like honestly, like he's so strong that his like base form does fairly well against Aizen, who, let's be real, he was also dicking around with all those guys.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
But he's still very powerful. Okay, so he knows about the final technique of the Shinigami, so he's obviously used something similar in the past. He's obviously really overpowered as a captain anyway, because even Aizen's like, we probably should stop him from going all out because he might defeat White. Like that's something that's that is implied, and given White is like in a much weaker form of himself at that point in the story, so that's all cool. But the idea that like Aizen's like he needs to be in a good physical state to use his Bankai, it's like, why not just use him as a plot device to beat the miracle while giving us fan service? He regroups with Toshihiro. They have a cool conversation. We get some lore stuff, and then, like you said before, with like some old veterans, Ryukin appears and he assists Uryu against Hushfolth, and like, I don't know, some cool stuff there. Here's nothing too. Hey, if you're Ishin, I don't know about you, bro, but I'm trying to kill that dusty ass old man who took my damn wife. Like, I'd be going crazy. Where the fuck is Yuha? Like, straight up. Like,
seriously.
raging.
And he doesn't show up until like right before the fight is over, and it's like Yuha, I think, already left to the Soul Society at that point, and it's like, we're here, and we got all geared up just to kind of deliver. Does Ishin even do anything? They show up together. Ryukin gives the arrowhead to Uryu, and that's it. Ishin didn't even need to be there, really.
Bro, they're just pizza boys. They pull up and they're like, yo, here's that fucking 1970s vampire like plot device. Use that thing right there, bang, and then they hit him with an arrow. Like, oh,
I would be 100% okay. By the way, considering how bad the Gerald Valkyrie fight ended, I'd be 100% okay with Ishin showing up. His Bankai is just some OP hacks ability that just kills him. I'd be like, it's better than what we got. You know what I mean? Like, there you go.
Hell yeah, because imagine, for an example, that when we get to this point in the anime, and we have like 2 episodes straight where you have post Soul Palace Byakuya, you have Toshihiro, you have Ishin, and they all as a team, because in the series, like, it's very much emphasized that teamwork highly amplifies battle ability. Like, as an example, Shunsui and Ukitake.
Absolutely,
Yamamoto's like, when you two fight in sync, you are like transcendent individuals in battle. That's what he refers to them word for word in the manga. So it's like, those 3 fighting together against the Miracle, it's like the perfect way to give the Miracle justice, because it shows how strong he is, while also giving us cool storytelling at the same time. Like, that'd be phenomenal. I'd love to see something like that happen. And again, to go back to that last point, the idea that Ishin wouldn't be like absolutely raging his head off, ready to go kill Yuha, or at least try to get to him like Komamura was with his, his Dongai OP immortal form. Like, it just feels like
it feels off as a character. It feels like Kubo just like kind of forgot about it, because it really doesn't even come up even during the backstory. There's really no like moment where Ishin is like, that damn Yuha or whatever like that,
I guess it's very much evident. So it's very clear that he's like, life's terrible, Ichigo. Like, she was taken away like this, and that's the truth. And it's like, that's like, I get that, but it's also very, very evident that when you get to the final 20 chapters to maybe even 30 chapters of the manga, that the pace goes from like a car cruising on the highway
0 to 60.
Like,
it's
like, oh shit, 5th gear, here we go.
Yeah,
it's just going way too fast.
It really just honestly felt more like Ishin was like, it was like, I'm upset that my wife died. Okay, that makes sense. But you're treating it like it was natural causes, like she died of a disease or something. And it's like, no, she was murdered straight up. Indirectly by Grand Fisher, and Ishin did get, the kill on Grand Fisher. But more importantly, this was because of Yuha.
He's the real creme de la creme of that situation.
Absolutely. There. Also, since we just went through the whole thing, one more point. We went through the whole thing where Ishin had the whole like, she was the sun, she illuminated my life. I was just happy to be around her, and it's like, okay, then he really loved Misaki, and it's like, this should be something that should at least be addressed. Even if Ichigo gets the kill on Yuha, that's perfectly acceptable. Misaki was his mom, but Ishin should be in a role here somewhere, Yeah.
Even a conversation. Imagine he pulls up to assist Ichigo And like obviously by this point, Ichigo's far surpassed his father in strength. It's like, don't worry, Dad, I'll take
Yeah,
care of this. Like,
perfect.
you know, like it's good because Ichigo was always mentally harming himself all the time about how like it was his responsibility for the fact that she died. He always blamed himself. Like that was always part of it. Like he's always like, you know, he always looked at that as a really sad moment in his life where he couldn't get over it to the point where even Rukia was like in shock when she found out the truth. So you got so much potential for storytelling here. Like I wish if I was Kubo's assistant,
Yeah.
I would not get too involved and ruin the story. Like I'm not going to be an idiot like that. But I would simply be like, listen, as someone that like loves this series like a lot, dude, to the point where you know I now talk about it for a living. It's like I highly suggest that you flesh out stuff like this because I don't feel like the ideas he's given by assistants is necessarily the best. And like those are things where I'm like, Kubo, bro, you got gold in front of you. Use it, my friend.
It
Like your series has so much potential.
you know, it might be just like that, like in Japanese culture, to just be like, "Hey, is this good?" And it's like, "Yes." And just like not to be too
Yep.
critical
Yep.
about things. That might honestly
Yes.
be it. But if like going on the thing with like if I was the assistant, I would, like I said, I wouldn't push it too much. But like let's say something like that happened, and I would be like, "Well, what does Ishin feel about Yuha? What does this character feel about like and then maybe get a perspective there."
And you know for a fact that if you asked him that and it was translated to him, that he would sit there and he'd be like, you know, that is a good question. Actually, you know, I
Yeah.
feel like Ishin would probably react this way. Like I can imagine that conversation taking place because the point you made about the politeness in Japanese business and the way that they are about like not overstepping boundaries, it is very much the case that is really commonplace. The most insane thing I ever seen an author do was so I'm a big fan of Gantz, the manga.
Oh
And
yeah, I've read the whole thing. I like Gantz.
have,
Yeah.
have you seen how the author got sent a fan drawing of one of the characters, and the fan was like, they're like, "What do you think about drawing?" And he replies, he's like, "It's shit. The line art's terrible. You should have done it like that." Like he just straight up
That
said it was terrible.
Oh my god, that was Hiroya Oku that did Gantz, right? I think.
I don't know his name off the dome,
Yeah,
sadly.
yeah. But like that totally, given the fact that he's the mangaka of Gantz, yeah, that totally seems like his actual response there. But yeah, no, and like, look, editor interference does occur. Like probably the most notable one was the thing with Toriyama with like Cell's design in Dragon Ball. That was changed a few times there. So it does happen, but mangakas go through a lot of assistants and editors throughout the course if they have a long-running series in Shonen Jump. Like Oda's been through like I don't know, like over a dozen at this point or something. Like it's crazy. But yeah, so there's that. And also, I just wanted to bring this up before I forgot, since we talked about Ishin and Ichigo fighting Yuha, the Ryukin and Uryu thing that you brought up. That's really interesting. Of how like Hashwalth's and Uryu's abilities were the like horrible combination for each other because all it did was like bounce the damage back and forth between them. That'd be really cool for Ryukin to then show up and maybe Ryukin take the damage from the balance so then Uryu could finish him off or something like that. Like that would be a really cool way to tilt the scales in that
Yeah,
fight. Yeah.
you know, you've got so much opportunity here
Yeah.
for things like there are so many different like plot relevant points. So Ryukin is always looking through the lens of like the Quincy aren't a necessity. The Soul Reapers exist. Like I've already lost too much because of this stuff. Like I don't even care about this. But at the same time, he has to deal with the fact that his son is very misled throughout the world. Like his son is just like navigating through the darkness, and he's like trying to be like a good Quincy, but his father isn't directing him because his father doesn't want anything to do with it at the same time. So it's like you have that conversation, you have Ryukin backing him up. You also have Ryukin finally showing off how strong he is, which is cool because Kubo could do whatever he wants with that, and it would be interesting. And like that whole dynamic and expansion of like Uryu's character would just benefit the arc more and more because his whole "I'm going to go leave to join the Quincy's" thing is too fast. There's not enough delving into, but the anime, you know, the anime
Added
did
a
go
little
into
bit
that
more at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So like just lots of opportunity there, which I think would be really cool as we get further into the anime.
That brings a really, because Ryukin's always been one of my favorite characters that just doesn't do a lot in the series.
It's very cool.
But I'll tell you what, going back to the episode, that like after the scene with Misaki, after everything's taken care of and Uehara kind of heals Misaki with like the Giga and Ishin and everything, as Ryukin's walking back and he meets Katagiri, you get the expression on his face that like he's done with this Quincy shit. Like I just wish I was never born a Quincy. I wish I just never had to deal with any of this. But he has to, because that's just what is like his son is a Quincy. That's just, he has to deal with it. You know what I mean?
And that's what ties into what I meant, where it's like you can tell that at that moment when he realized he wasn't strong enough to be able to deal with White's power to keep Misaki sort of like alive. He was, because we know that his relationship with her is more about formality, not necessarily like he's fully in love with the girl. Like
No,
that was
no,
that's quite that's
yeah, there was
yeah,
some
like that's
flirting
quite
there
enough.
or whatever, but like honestly, he doesn't want this to go down. He's not happy about the
Yeah, yeah, true,
situation.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah, and people misunderstand that, but you can see in that moment he questions his own ability, where he's like, "Fuck, man! Like even if I wanted to help, I literally can't. Like I'm not
yeah,
strong enough to do this." And here's a line that I would have thrown in because when I watched the episode with my chat, I was like, a line that would have been really interesting because he didn't know Ishin at all whatsoever at that point. Like they're not familiar
no,
whatsoever. It would have been like in his head if he monologued and he's like, not only can I not save her, but a damn Soul Reaper
yeah,
of all people is gonna save her. Like, are you kidding me? Like, because initially he thinks in his head he's like, like Ishin won't do that. Sure, that's crazy. Like, but if he also added in more flack towards the Shinigami, sort of like, because that would tie into the Misaki thing where she's like, wait, should I tell him I'm a Quincy? Like, what if it's risky? What if they come back for us? Like, and then that turns out not to be the case. Well, you go back to the Ryukin scene and you look at that and you're like, all right, so what if he includes a line where he's thinking in his head, and then he's like, Ishin, no, there's no way he's going to do that. Not only is that like completely like completely like
taboo in the Quincy.
well,
Yeah,
yeah, and selfless, but he's a Shinigami. There's no way he would give away his life like that for this girl. And then Ishin's like, I'll do it. Like that
yep.
instant like snap scene is like, whoa, that'd be good. And then it develops Ryukin even more nuancedly too.
The way they're brought up, it's touched upon a little bit with like the holy training, the Seiren and everything. Like Quincy's education ever since the extermination operation 200 years ago is like, don't interact with the Shinigami, don't have anything to do with them. Like that's like the highest insult to our beings, to the Quincy's, to interact with them after what they did, okay? And
Yep.
so that leads to Misaki being like, should I tell him I'm a Quincy? Because I've been reading my whole life that Shinigami are basically devils incarnate. But of course that was the, evidence that Ishin was not like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyway. So that was a good discussion. I feel that was about an hour and a half of material. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm glad that honestly.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
on, man. Like, because a lot of people suggested you, and like, I'm glad we had a really solid chat here.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like I'm really glad that with this I'm really glad that with this conversation that it was not only like super relaxed, but we seem to agree on like almost every single thing. Like so that was good that we are looking at this through the same lens of like, we really appreciate the anime's back. We have our criticisms. In general, we just want the best for Bleach and that like there's so much like potential and so much like what ifs that could happen with these future seasons because I will say from the trailer of season 2, by the way, it's looking clean. I already like
Yeah,
the way
I
the
saw it, and
animation
it's
looks.
like, yeah, I can't wait until it
Mm-hmm.
July. I mean, I have a lot of other stuff on the channel, and maybe I'll have you on again. But like, my God, it's going to be excitable. I've heard there's like up to 4 cores for this, and I don't know how
Yes,
that's
yes.
going to work, but we'll see.
I know how. So the main part of the arc, which we all obviously realize is going to be big fights. So I think it's within their best interest to just expand these fights as much as possible and
Yeah.
milk them and then add in more material because they've already opened up by saying Kubo is writing them up ideas for fights that weren't in the manga and trying to add in stuff. So they're very much going to try to expand this as much as possible because the pacing of season 1 was really, really, really quick, but I feel
Yes.
like it'll slow down a bit in season 2. And all I want at the end of the day with season 2 is that I want the animators to have as much time as possible, not be stressed out, and let them do their work because the character designs look so damn good in season 2's
Mhm.
trailer. Like Baz B looks cool, Ichigo's face looks cool
Yep.
as he's flying. Everything looks so nice. So a lot of potential there.
It's a lot of really cool potential there and expansion. And once again, some people have brought that up, like the pacing of the first core was really fast, faster than you're usually used to seeing in Bleach. And the thing is, like, I don't think there was really tremendously a lot of stuff they could really have expanded on in that first part. I mean, yeah, they could have added more scenes with like the Kilge fight or whatever, but it's like overall,
Yeah.
I think the first part of this arc was pretty solid in the manga. So now that we're getting to this part, though, here's all the fights. Here's the rematches between the Quincy and the Shinigami. We're gonna see some really cool stuff from this point onward. Yeah, absolutely. And
I
then
guess
then there's stuff with like the sorry to cut you off, but there's the things with the can't fear your own world beyond that, which may be added in. Who knows? Yeah.
true. Yeah, I guess just the idea that the war arc at the start is very 0 to 100 anyway, and like there isn't like a whole lot of dialogue necessarily, except for like when Yuha was talking to Yamamoto's dead body and then everything but the rain. So what we will see in these future episodes is obviously it'll be very fight heavy, but it sort of is at the same time when you go back and like I'm sure if we were to sit here and binge watch all of season 1, we'd probably be like, it's not even that fast. It just kind of covers the material that was necessary in the pacing that it was supposed to go. Because
Yeah, and also the substitute arc, man. I mean, that's a way more slice of life kind of supernatural manga at the very beginning. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit of a different tone from what happens later on with the fights and everything.
Absolutely. I guess like it'd be one of them things where when you watch it weekly, you're probably thinking, oh, that's not enough stuff. But if you were to binge it, you'd probably look at it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Clyde. It was an honor, and have you on again at some point because we're going to be doing a lot more of these episodes.
Nah, man, it was an honor to come on your show, man. I really appreciate it because I'd been asked a few times, like, yo, you should collab with Tekking, and I'm like, well, I can't like invite myself onto his like channel, bro.
No, you totally can. It's fine. And you just be like, hey, Tekking, I'm on the show on Thursday. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll just do that. I'm like, okay.
I appreciate it very much, man. You know, I've been working very hard on these latest videos. By the time this goes up, I might have I can't really spoil what it is, but I do.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, this one will probably be up, like it's still, because, you know, time difference, you're in Australia and all that. It's still Tuesday for me right now. This probably might not be up until maybe Thursday, actually, because I got some other stuff going on, but I will get this up. Yeah, let everybody know about, like, anything you have going on or anything if you want to tell them.
Yeah, okay.
Links. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I didn't want to, like, you know, overstep my boundaries, but I guess two things, guys, depending on like when this video goes up and when I get my next one out. I'd super appreciate two things. Just go watch my Dongai Ichigo video that I uploaded because that was, I think that's one of my better recent videos. And then also if you could, you know, help me get to 200k subs, that's it because I'm very close to that. Actually, I'm like 2,000 off. So apart from that, that's basically it. I really appreciate you having me on. This genuinely was a very like chill conversation because it's the first time I've actually spoken to you apart from through DM. So it's really cool to not only feel that we have similar opinions on Bleach, that it was a real natural, cool collab. And if you ever want to have me on again, I'll come on anytime. So thank you very much.
No problem, man. And, you know, thanks for coming on. And I just love talking about Bleach again, honestly. It's just such a refreshing thing to be like after 10 years. It's like, okay, we could finally talk about this series that we both really love. But yeah, and you heard him, everybody. Help him get to 200K. I think I was on your channel earlier today. You're very, very close to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like 2.9 off. So
you'll get that no problem very
1.9,
soon. Yeah, you'll be very close to that. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking signing out. Later.